The following program is rated G and is suitable for viewing by all ages.
I can tell you, anybody watching this documentary that doesn't want their curiosity to be piqued and looked at, you know, from this is surely lacking for sure, because, you know, we have such tremendous people here in the city, such a pedigree of decency and community building and so on.
Coming to Red Deer, I didn't really understand the essence of the city, but now, after all this, I think I do a little bit more. We started this journey in October 2022 when we really dove into the currency of contribution and started to meet people. We spoke to lots of people who contributed greatly into the community, and their reputations were really based on these things that they've done for the betterment of the city.
Well, it's a very vibrant community with a very high level of volunteerism. We've always been, in fact, that was the slogan on the entrances to the city, is the city of volunteers. It's nice to be part of something that's recognizing volunteerism and community contribution in here in Red Deer, because, as I say, it's something I've been involved in literally all my adult life.
Even though we're not showing them all, the major ones that we had sit-down interviews with really summarize just how much work and time that we put into this project each week. Really, the inspiration for this topic began with the 2019 Canada Winter Games and sports in general, because everybody talked about this all the time. It was clearly a defining moment for this community.
I covered the Canada Winter Games not long after I moved here as a reporter. It was definitely the first time I took notice of how certain individuals' faces pop up time and time again. It was interesting to see just how dedicated some of those people can be. One of those people, of course, was Lynn Radford.
The biggest fun show in downtown Red Deer that everybody came out for and got into the spirit of the games. It was amazing. So one of the things we did, and here's just a side story, one of the things we did was we had hired a horse and wagons, because we were trying to, you know, have a theme of marrying the rural with the urban, and that's what Red Deer really was. So we put the committee into the wagon, and we had Ron McLean and his wife Carrie waiting in the wagon. So that was amazing in itself. We went down the street, and if you're thinking we're going north from the rec center, from the curling rink, we're going north, and then we have to turn on Ross Street. And we turned the corner on Ross Street, and you could just look down past City, you could see all the way down past City Hall. And it was just a sea of red, and it was unbelievable. And it was just like the whole committee just rose up in the wagon, and they couldn't believe, they said, "Look at the people." And I honestly believe that's what swung it for us.
Wow,
yeah, it was
just a sea of red.
Just a sea of red. And then we had, you know, of course we had some little things that happened down there and everything, but it was the sea of red.
So was that community coming together?
That was that community coming together.
Talking to people in the sports community made us realize coaches and teammates are really the quiet heroes who contribute to people's lives at all ages and pretty much on a daily basis.
When I was younger, much younger than you, I went to was Red Deer College in the day.
Okay.
Yes, so I was playing with the junior hockey team. In the day, it was the Red Deer Rustlers.
Okay.
So long ago, but I played for them as I was going to Red Deer RDP, I guess now. Yeah. You know, when you look today at some of the facilities Red Deer has, and with the ski hill and you know, just the legacy even from the 2019 Canada Winter Games, some great facilities or great upgrades of facilities. But I think that pretty well any activity you wanted to participate in, you could do that here in Red Deer.
Just about every day, sometimes, several times a week, I get emails, I get phone calls. How can we get involved? How can I get my child involved? What's the requirements? And so it really gives me a good feeling to be able to talk to them, tell them what opportunities there are, what the costs are, how they can get involved. And then when they do come and take part in the program, just to see them develop over the years, it's just really gratifying. Lots of stories like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, stories about the athletes in the 400 meter dash in Special Olympics, one of our provincial competitions. I think there was probably 6 or 8 of them running the 400 meter dash. 20 yards, 30 yards before the end, finish line, one of them falls. The rest of them all stop, go pick him up, join hands, and brings me to tears. Run across the finish line together.
This spirit of volunteerism and fundraising has been here since the beginning, and it's even drawn people to move to the city for that tight-knit community feel. Some people we spoke to shared insights on how to bring community together and taught us the specifics on how to get things done, like raising millions of dollars, which seems impossible, but apparently it can be done, which I thought was pretty cool.
You have to be sure that what you're trying to raise money for is going to make Red Deer a better place.
You gotta have a cause.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we're doing a master class and like teaching people how to fundraise.
And if it's a building, if you have plans to show people the size of this and how it's going to look, and here's where the hallways are, and it's going to have windows in it, and you know, it makes it look like it's going to happen. It's not just somebody's casting their line in the water
And you have to
catch a
follow it
fish.
right through to the end, right through to when you finally got enough money that you were aiming for. And then, as I say, you thank them and follow up and get the money to where it's supposed to be and stuff. So you don't just go to meetings once in a while. You're there every darn time and
10 minutes before the meeting starts.
A lot of people in the world of fundraising and things like that, the majority of people are scared to death to come to you and say, look, I need $50 to you know, buy some macaroni and cheese for these guys or whatever, that sort of thing. And I have absolutely no fear in asking any one of you to put $100 on the table and help out the outreach. And the thing that I find about that is that if you've got the courage of your own convictions, you go out, you do it, you have some fun with it.
What would you say to people who are like in a time like this where there's like, let's say, high inflation or et cetera, and people may not be able to give that $100? How would you kind of respond back?
Oh, I thank them for just letting me talk to them. And that is just, not everybody has a bunch of money in their pocket. And that, we've all been there. And that, hell, I was in the Navy for 11 years. Yeah. Paycheck was $98 a month. I remember that forever. Somebody would ask me for a $10 donation. I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
You know? But, I mean, that's just the way things are in life, right? There's some people that just do very, very well, and some people that get by, and then there's those that take a lot of pride in making sure that they give, you know, a fair amount back.
We knew the cultural episode in particular was going to be a big one because of the redneck reputation. But we learned a lot along the way of how many cultures are actually present in Red Deer. It's really a growing population and people are moving to the city.
I'm from the Toronto area originally, and before I moved out here to Red Deer, I lived and worked in small town Saskatchewan for about half a year. So when I came here, it was like I was coming to Manhattan. Even then, I definitely heard that redneck reputation for Red Deer, and I'd be lying if I said that doesn't exist here at all, but getting to know some of the people who are trying to change that reputation was really an enlightening experience.
We chatted with all kinds of people from different cultures that make up different perspectives within the community. It takes a lot of guts to try to bring culture to the forefront in a city that you might think will present some resistance. But there are plenty of people who have contributed to making everyone in the community feel welcome and a part of the city.
I think we have known that immigration will become more and more prevalent in Canada. Canada has a declining population if it isn't for immigration. So economy depends on immigration. Population growth depends on immigration. Healthcare depends on immigration. Like there aren't enough healthcare workers in Canada, so you have to bring immigrants who will bring those cares to you. So people don't often realize these things, but it's actually really key, and that's why the government is inviting more and more immigrants to move here. And most immigrants are economic class, which means they have education, they have work experience in their own respective areas, and they can contribute to the economy and community and society here.
You know, to me, it's like people talk about how we can stop racism. And like we can really, you know, we all human beings, we all have a bias, right, towards each other. So I say, only way we can really change that is to bring people together and have a conversation and have fun together, and everything else will solve itself. But we have to bring that positive light to people, and things will change.
The one thing I was taught when my parents went through hardships as well, and we almost lost our farm when my dad was in his early 40s, and he went back to NAIT and got re-educated and got a new certificate in chemical engineering, and he basically said to his family, you have to put your pride in your back pocket and do what you need to do to help your family. And I see the same thing with all of these families coming, and I often give them that same advice, because it's humbling to realize that they're so educated, and yet, because of language, because of education not being transferable, that they're stuck doing service jobs and cleaning and menial work. But it's nice to see the progress that, the families that have come here 10 years ago are now on their second house, and they've gone and got English, they've electricians, plumbers, and they're upgrading their life through education, and their family is benefiting from it. So, and they're able to give back to community as well. So I like to see that, that it's going to continue to, the circle of life is going to continue, and that paying it forward.
People say, what were your goals, or what were I don't do that. I always think of it as, Creator will put me where I'm supposed to be, and all I got to do is keep my eyes and ears open and go when called.
Yeah.
So now, again, every person is going through their own journey as far as, me, I was 60 scooped, I didn't grow up in the culture, on and on. So it's, I don't know, eventually you learn things, right? And people will hold you, will help you, and some people will hold you back because, you're not res enough or whatever, But the truth is everybody's journey is legitimate.
The most impactful episode surely was the one we did on homelessness. There was so much content that we had to combine 2 episodes for it as we went along.
I know I've had some negative experiences in this area within the city. My friend was living in the downtown when I moved in with her when I first came to Red Deer, so I've seen some stuff, and particularly as a journalist, hearing all sides of the story, I understand why people are frustrated. And it doesn't excuse certain behaviors like vandalism or, being followed or public defecation or anything like that. So I think it would be very negligent to not understand this side of the story. That's what being objective is, to hear all sides. And that's why Kath Hoffman was my favorite interview by far as a result. I honestly think that people should see that entire interview for its 45 minutes raw, because she really spoke to everyone, on behalf of everyone. She was captivating, hilarious, emotional, and real. She advocates for this population on the daily, and she contributes to helping them every day. But she also acknowledges the realities of how it impacts others. Like, for example, she said, when people overdose in the temporary shelter bathroom and it hurts the employees that work there. She was honest about everything. She made me see everything in a new light and question what I know. And for that, I'm really grateful for her, because I've really grown from that interview.
Yeah, I remember the first time I had a teen call that phone, and I believed in harm reduction. Safe Harbor grew up with that philosophy. It's in our DNA. And we say we're going to meet people where they're at, right? And I believed that. I thought, oh yeah, I can wrap my head around that, right? And then this teenager phoned me. And all of a sudden, it occurred to me that I didn't want to give that kid a needle. On the contrary, I wanted to pick her up and, take her somewhere and get, save her, right? And thank goodness I had a daughter at the time who was 16, and I had the good sense to think, if that was my kid right now in this situation, I would hope to God she would have a clean needle. And then I could kill her later, right? But that was my first experience of having that belief I had being stretched to fit, not what I just assumed was the need, but I had to stretch it. I had to make room for that and recognize that, holy doodle, this world is different than mine, And I think that's what we struggle with to this day.
The biggest takeaway for me was stepping foot inside that shelter. It's easy to read about what happens in that world or listen to someone talk about it, but you really gain a whole different level of perspective when you enter that world. One thing Kath said that stuck with me was how when you go inside the shelter, it feels like your senses are assaulted. I thought that was a pretty powerful way to put it.
There's lots of youth that are experiencing homelessness, and it sort of carries into adulthood. And whatever that reason is, whether it's, kids living in foster care and getting bumped around, or leaving an abusive home, it starts this cycle of running away. Running away is easy until it's not.
Not only is this issue difficult for the people going through it, but also for the people who have the burden of finding the solution.
It can be very emotionally tiring. People talk about compassion fatigue and various different things. And you see that in service and caring professions, right? Where you spend so much time listening, and you can have what we call compassion fatigue, where you start feeling that physical, emotional fatigue from helping with people. That's why it's so important for us to become aware of our own mental health and mental wellness, and what do we have to do to stay well in this job, right?
Well, the leaders in our community said the best response to NIMBY is leadership. And there will come a point where we need to make the decision, understanding the concerns that neighborhood has, because there are ways to maybe not 100% resolve them, but to work through it. I do think that part of where the new location is that we need to have the community get to know people who are working at the shelter, as well as maybe volunteer. It really needs to be that community place.
The best way to learn about a place is by getting to know the people. There are so many more stories out there from different people. It feels like we hardly scratched the surface.
For me, learning how to create my first video-related project has been an amazing experience. Getting to know my teammates in particular and what they have contributed to this documentary just showed me what this city is really about. I wasn't able to offer them much, and they were always there doing so much work, and I'm just so happy that I got to know them and can call them my friends, and it was very fun on most days. No, I'm kidding. Should I say that or no?
I think it's fun.
Okay. In Red Deer, contribution is a currency that never decreases in value. And I hope that this documentary shows that. Ding. Actually, I want my last scene to be this. Hopefully that'll work. You can put that in there.